For TraderInsight.com, I'm Adrian Manz, and it's time for your daily dose of the doctor. Tonight, I'd like to do something a little different. We had a big downdraft in the broader markets today, but that made for a good day of trading, albeit a little bit difficult, right? So it was a little hard to watch all these trades if you weren't very organized. So what I'd like to do is show you how I set up the day ahead of time so that I was able to get in front of the maximum number of opportunities. So first things first, let's look at the trading plan gouge sheet for Thursday, January 7th, 2016. We see here that on the around the horn portion of the plan, we had APA on the short side of the market, CF on the short side of the market, EL on the short side of the market, NOV on the short side of the market, and RAI as our only long. So these were trades that I was able to set up ahead of time using conditional orders in my trading software. I put those together on Wednesday night. They were good to go first thing in the morning. The requirement that I gave the software was that each one of these had to be trading 8 cents above the stated entry price in order to trigger an entry. So 38.35 meant that we had a 38.43 requirement. 35.17 meant we had a 35.25 requirement. 84.64 meant the stock had to trade up to 84.72. And 31.04 had to be trading up at 31.12. While RAI at 48.01 had to trade down at 47.93. And all that was just for the open, right? I wanted to see those stocks trading on the other side of their entry price, but when the opening bell rang, so that I wasn't trying to catch a falling knife on any of these trades. And then we see that my stops, 50% to target, and target were all in place. I had stocks to watch as well. These, as most of you know, I trade pretty much wide open, so I just have the entry, the stop, and the target that I program into my trading software ahead of time as a bracket order. ANET, CTB, and GPI were all on the list for the session. The wild card here, of course, CBG and MHFI. Those are stocks and sectors on the radar, and I follow those as discretionary trades based on what's going on in the market. Now let's have a look at what happened when the opening bell rang, and we got into those morning gaps. EXPD, this one gapped down 2 standard deviations on the open. We had a 41.81 high of the first bar of trading. That was the deepest bar in the gap. And then it's unrealistic to think that a $40 stock is going to make it up $3 to that pivot line. So what do you reach for? You go for your fib tool. In the first hour trading pit this morning, this is how we called it, right? I was looking at a Fibonacci study, and I said $42.31. The 382 extension on this position was where I was going to pull the plug. And in the room, we booked a nice 50-cent per share profit trading EXPD. Next, we had one of the big boys. We had Costco. And when Costco comes up, we can count on that one to move. That is a $150-something stock, and those stocks tend to really get going once they're going. In this case, a $154.99 print was the high of the first bar of trading. Once again, that was the deepest bar in the opening gap. Second bar, we were off to the races. $154.99 was our high, got us in, and we had a move on that one up to the pivot at $156.45. A couple of you guys in the room pulled the plug on that one early. That's nothing to be ashamed of. A stock that is moving as fast as Costco was moving today with the amount of wiggle that it had. If you didn't pre-program those entries and exits and you weren't looking at 156.45 saying, I'm confident it's going to get there, then using things like 25 tick charts and fib levels to time an exit is perfectly acceptable. No one says you have to be on board for the entire move. $1.46 per share if you were. The final gap we traded this morning was PAYX, ticker symbol PAYX. This one made a 2 standard deviation gap move to the downside, and 48.75, once again the high of the first bar, wound up being the deepest bar in that gap, and we had a move then that took us up and out, and the only way on this one, once again, to time where we thought it was going to go was to use that fib study and come in just like we talked about at boot camp. We used a $49.23 exit on this one. That was a nice gain. 48 cents per share on a $48 stock. Between our 3 opening gap trades, $2.44 per share in profits for every share traded. Rick, of course, called these in the room for us. He wound up booking $2.04 per share. His exits were a little different, and you're always going to see that your exits are going to vary just depending on who you are and how closely you're paying attention to these things. Sometimes it's better to set them and forget them. Other times, of course, it's better to have trailing stops in place. Trailing stops can be frustrating sometimes because they wind up taking you out before you hit your profit objective. But in any case, you know what the 2 standard deviation Baltimore chop opens can do for you. And these 3 stocks were a good example once again on Thursday. Now let's look at those planned trades. Here is the around the horn portion of the trading plan. Here is APA. We had a fastball. It gapped way down. Now, since it didn't gap within allowable slippage, this gap right here does not count as the first entry on the position. It's not until we get 8 cents above this 38.35 line that we have a first entry. We see that the result of that first entry was a move to the 50% to target line. At that point, we move our stop to break even, and look what happened. It came up, it hit the entry line, break even stop, we're out. A few minutes later, it came right back, loaded up again. We had another entry, and this time all the way down to the profit target. Now, do I wish I would have had a trailing stop on this one? Of course I do. But I had these all pre-programmed. I had first entries and second entries ready to go, and in this case, it just took me out right at the target. I'm never going to cry about taking a profit. CF Industries, on the other hand, ticker symbol CF. This one opened above our entry price, ticked down 35.17, got me in right after the open. And this one did have us feel a little bit like crying because at this point it looked like that day might not shape up the way that it did. We had to move right up to the stop loss. But look what happened. By following the discipline, a little later in the day, CF comes back down, trades right at that 35.17 level. Consolidates here at 34.91 even as its sector was plummeting. That told us there were some buyers in there who really thought this was going to be a great place to pick up the stock. As soon as that buyer stepped out of the way, boom, right down to the profit target. So while we made 59 cents per share on APA, counting the break-even stop and the target move, on this one we lost 38 cents on the first move and made 48 cents on the second move for a net of 10 cents per share on CF. National Oil Well Varco Incorporated, ticker symbol NOV. This one again opened below our entry price, so no entry right out of the gate on this, and it opened well beyond allowable slippage, so this did not count as a first entry. It moved up to 31.04, but never made the criterion on the trading plan of moving at least 8 cents above that entry, so this was no entry. Around 11 a.m. Eastern Time, it made a pop up, comes very close to the stop loss, moves down, tags us in, reverses, comes all the way up to the stop, right, 31.39, so now we've got a 35 cent per share loss on this one. But look what happened. Our second entry opportunity, remember we always take 2 entries on these if they're available, got us down to 31.04, then made a move all the way down to 10 cents to the target and stopped us out at $30.79. 24 cents per share on that move, so down 11 cents per share on the session for NOV. Arista Networks was the first of the stocks to watch setups, ticker symbol ANET. Look what happened here. 72.12 was the entry. Clearly got us in right in that first bar of trading. Straight down and looked like it was going to make it to the target. Now, like I said, I trade these wide open and fully automated, and what you see here is it missed the profit target by a penny. Came up, went almost to the stop. We have no money management rules on these stocks to watch that Julie and I use. There's an alternate way of trading them, which is right there in the trading plan, which tells you to go ahead and use the same kind of structure that you're using on the around the horn portion of the trades. But we just enter these as simple bracket orders. Get in at the entry, get out either at the stop loss or at the profit target, and I only take 1 trade in each one of these. Well, look what happened. It turned around, came back down through that entry price, and went straight to the $71.33 profit target. That's a 79 cent per share gain, and as you know, if you follow the stocks to watch, these can be some very, very robust trades, even if they do have greater equity swings than the around the horn portion of the plan. Cooper Tire and Rubber was the next stocks to watch that triggered. Once again on the opening bell, no dice, no entry on this one. Comes up, gets 8 cents above, 34.11 would be 8 cents above the entry line. Came back down through, 34.03 was the entry, and then it oscillated right here in between the entry and the pivot for hours. If you took this trade and took it off because you got frustrated with it, well, shame on you, because look what happened. All the way down to $33.63. That's a 40 cent per share gain on CTB, once again from the stocks to watch portion of the trading plan. And finally, we've got Group 1 Automotive. This one's been a strong performer for us just about as long as I can remember, but today GPI opened, got us into a position, reversed, and immediately took us out at the stop loss. Again, this is a stocks to watch trade, so we did not have any other opportunities to enter this over the course of the day because I only take one entry on these setups. Just so happens that entry went 60 cents against me. So let's tally it all up and take a look at what happened over the course of the session. Over the course of the session, first hour trades booked $2.44 per share in profits. We know that those perform exceptionally well, especially on days where we get a lot of activity around the opening bell. That's why we do them. That's why we like focusing on first hour trading. But, not to be forgotten, once you added the around the horn portion of the trading plan back into this, you got an extra $1.06 per share traded, bringing you to $3.50 per share for the day. And this was a day that a lot of people saw a lot of money evaporate. I know some of you trade very large share size, others trade very small share size. There's really no way to tell how much anyone may or may not have made on any given day. But what I really hope that tonight's video shows you is that by being organized with your work, by focusing on a trading plan that puts you in front of a lot of opportunities and diversifies your opportunities and your risks, you really have the opportunity to book some very solid profits, even when markets collapse. So if you have any questions, shoot me an email, adrian@traderinsight.com. I hope you had a great trading day today and an even better one on deck for tomorrow. The best trader education anywhere, only from traderinsight.com.